Ah, Judy Garland. What is there left to even really say about her at this point? She's a critically acclaimed actress, a wonderful female vocalist, and certifiably awesome. Besides The Wizard of Oz, she's probably most well known for the 1944 jukebox musical Meet Me in St. Louis. Meet Me in St. Louis is a beloved film about how hard it is to not really have any problems. Even if you haven't heard of it, you've probably heard of some of its songs, like the Trolley Song, Boy Next Door, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. It was a huge box office success, was critically acclaimed, and is remembered fondly today. It's also my grandpa's favorite movie ever, true story. But how does it hold up without the nostalgia goggles? Let's find out. This is Meet Me in St. Louis. The family in Meet Me in St. Louis is really big. Living under one roof is a father, mother, 5 kids, a grandpa, and the maid. But out of the up-teen bajillion characters, we only really need to care about Esther, played by Judy Garland. Her romance with the boy next door is the only subplot that's constant throughout the entire film. It starts out a little shaky, with her being a little too pushy, and John, the neighbor boy, being a little too oblivious, but it develops into a believable relationship over time. The 2 actors have chemistry, and the writing is actually like a teenage romance. I also appreciate how they don't just meet and then instantly fall in love. They don't even kiss until like 3 months in. Take a few months more to decide to marry. Something that in musicals doesn't happen nearly as often as it should. I'm happy to see an actually well-written and thought-out romance subplot in a musical. Right off the bat, you notice a sort of lack of any real conflict in this movie. The problems are small, wrapped up quickly, and usually aren't ever mentioned again. Let's just examine one of the plot lines. On Halloween, the youngest daughter gets injured at pulling a prank. Quick tangent. The kids in this movie are way too focused on pranking at Halloween. Seriously, it's like they feel like if they don't throw flour into every neighbor's face, they're going to like explode or something. They make bonfires, hijack vehicles, and use fear to make the other kids pull pranks. This is disturbing! Whatever happened to Candy? Well anyway, Esther's sister Tootie gets injured in a botched prank. So to cover up for it, she blames her injury on John. Esther fights with him, and then she finds out it was for no reason. And what are the ramifications? Absolutely nothing. The two kiss and make up, and there are no consequences for Tootie whatsoever. It's basically as if nothing happened at all. The romance goes on just fine, and Tootie continues to act like a psychotic brat. The whole movie in general reminded me of something, and then it hit me. Let's see if you can guess this one too. There's a large household with a bunch of characters, very, very focused on a specific location, a lack of conflict, makes it easy moments every 10 minutes, obnoxious children, and it has a wholesome feel to a sickening degree. This movie is the direct precursor to Full House. If Full House was a musical and took place in 1903, this would be it. But it actually does manage to be sometimes funny, charming, and heartfelt, so it is better than Full House. Yeah, as much as I rag on the lack of any real plot, the characters are usually interesting enough to keep me invested due to the acting and writing. That is, for the most part at least. Speaking of acting, the acting is pretty good across the board, but Judy Garland steals the show. Like with Dorothy, she brings something extra to what should be an otherwise unremarkable character. She also utters the best line in the entire movie, as well as one of the greatest lines in the history of cinema.
I'll bet you really hate me.
Oh no, John, I don't hate you. I just hate basketball.
For those of you who are wondering, yes, that line does have context, but do you honestly want to know it? Something about that line is just hilarious to me. Make that an internet meme, put it on a t-shirt, something. To me, that's right up there with Not the Beats, All Your Faiths Are Belong to Us, and Your Soul Was Lost in the River! Okay, back to the plot. The major source of conflict is that their father's job requires them to move from St. Louis to New York City, but none of the other characters want to. Truly, it's a tale of epic proportions. This plot is so thin, even the back of the VCR case makes fun of it. I am directly quoting here. Her family is crushed to learn that her father has accepted a transfer to New York City. Leaving their friends is bad enough, but to miss the 1903 St. Louis World's Fair? Tragedy! Also, notice that the father took a life-changing offer, one that would affect his entire family without even telling them about it. That's his character in a nutshell. He never tells his family anything, they never tell him anything. The whole overworking and neglectful father thing is common, but usually they try to make him sympathetic. They don't really do that here. This dad is just sort of a jerk. However, I do like that this movie occasionally plays his disconnect from the family for laughs.
I've positively decided we are going to get married at the earliest opportunity, and I don't want to hear any arguments. That's final. I love you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Anna, who is that boy?
Okay, that was actually pretty funny. Now let's discuss the music in Meet Me in St. Louis. I was able to wait too long because there honestly isn't a lot of music. The songs are few, far in between, and are inconsequential. This is one of the few cases where you could probably remove the musical numbers altogether, but what we got was okay. This movie has good ballads, lively show tunes, and an excellent cover of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas by Garland. My favorite song is probably the trolley song, which is surprisingly fun and catchy.
Chug, chug, chug went the motor. Thump, thump, thump went the brake. Thump, thump, thump went my heartstrings as we glided by Huntington Lane.
One glaring problem is that some of the actors cannot sing. So when they have a song, another person has to loop in the audio, and it is very, very obvious.
Years of dark and fair weather.
Whoa, they Beyonce'd that one bad. I also feel obliged to talk about how this movie really loves St. Louis. I've never been there, and I'm sure that's a nice place, but it gets a little ridiculous after a while. The way they talk about it, you would think that St. Louis is like the one true religion or something. At one point they say that because of the World's Fair, St. Louis will become the most important place in the universe. Maybe the real reason why they don't want to move is that if they do, the other members of the St. Louis cult will hunt them down and sacrifice them to St. Louis. Meet Me in St. Louis also joins Die Hard and Gremlins on the list of kind of Christmas films, but not really. Which brings us to the movie's ending. The family is supposed to leave for New York City right after Christmas, so they plan to make their last Christmas dance really count. Esther's sister and brother are all crabby because they don't have dates, but she convinces them to go with each other. Then, tragedy strikes when due to plot contrivances, John can't make it. At first, she is devastated, but then cheers up when Grandpa offers to be her partner. Wait a minute, like 1 minute earlier, she was saying this.
One sister going with her brother has been done, but 2 sisters makes the whole family look ridiculous. I won't do it.
But now she's totally fine with going with Grandpa? Maybe she just, like, really hates her brother. So, the family goes to the dance, the siblings get dates very easily, as it turns out, and Esther has an okay time with Grandpa. Remember how they established that John absolutely could not make it to the dance? Well, the way that they bring him back into the picture is so sudden and so rushed that you might actually miss it. Yep, he just appears and they never explain how. I actually didn't even notice it the first time I saw it. This is exceptionally confusing because the very next scene is John proposing to Esther. This is yet another example of how this movie loves pointless drama and makes it easy moments. So after the dance, the family goes home, and then Tootie throws a tantrum, destroying a bunch of snowmen because she really doesn't want to move. The dad sees it, and then decides not to make the family move. Yes, he changes his mind because his daughter really doesn't want to move. What, is the moral that if you just yell and scream enough, your parents will give you whatever you want? That is not how the world works, and that is really how you don't want your kids to think that the world works. So, with the plot just brushed away, the family puts on the silliest outfits available and goes to the World's Fair, giving one more worship session to St. Louis and ending the film on a happy note. So that was Meet Me in St. Louis. This is one of the few movies that has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This doesn't really surprise me because it's kind of impossible to dislike it, but not really for the best reasons. While good, the movie doesn't really take enough risks to be great, leaving us with a film that is somewhere between good and middle of the road. But even so, it's hard not to be charmed by this movie. It's not particularly smart or particularly memorable, but it did put in a genuine effort. It brought people joy, and at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Of the joy